Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have a lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And during the upcoming 12 hours, the most important updates are being expected from the territory of the United States of America. Today, according to information we have, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, and Donald Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner will meet with the Ukrainian delegation on Sunday in Florida. And today, these two delegations are going to talk about the 28-point plan that was provided by the United States of America several days ago. They will try to finish the negotiations, finish talks. Ukrainians will try to convince the United States of America to make additional changes. And then the US delegation will travel to the Russian Federation with the purpose to discuss this plan with the Russian Federation and to finish the war in Ukraine. But as usually before such important events, Zelensky once again made lots of very interesting statements. According to information we have, Zelensky is going to change its defense plan. Zelensky said following a report from Defense Minister Shmyhal, so Ukraine is going to change something. They're planning to change their defense tactics, their strategy. So we'll see most likely in coming days what exactly Zelensky was talking about. Zelensky approved secret directives for the Ukrainian delegation at negotiations with the US and Russia. The corresponding order has been officially published. Tomorrow, the Ukrainian delegation, so which means today, led by National Security and Defense Council head Umerov, will meet with Witkoff and Kushner in Miami. But according to information we have, they're going to have a meeting in Florida. According to media reports, they will persuade Kiev representatives to make concessions on the withdrawal of troops from Donetsk People's Republic. Following these talks, Witkoff and Kushner are scheduled to fly to Moscow, where they will present the finalized peace plan to Putin. Another important thing is that, according to information we have, in coming days, Zelensky stated this yesterday in the evening, we will rely finalized steps to determine how to end the war with dignity. So what is happening right now? Zelensky doesn't want to accept demands of the Russian Federation, three of them. First of all, to withdraw troops from the Donetsk region. The second one, to limit the size of the armed force to Ukraine. And the third one is Zelensky doesn't want to be a neutral state. He doesn't see Ukraine as a neutral state. He wants Ukraine to join both NATO and the European Union. So the Ukrainian delegation is going to talk just about these things in Florida with the representatives of the United States of America. They will try to convince them to change the original plan, and then they will try to convince them to convince the Russians to accept this, let's say, proposal. But we understand that Russia will deny and reject this proposal because obviously this is exactly the reason why the Russians started the special military operation. So that is why Zelensky told his delegation that Ukraine will change its defense plan, and that the delegation must tell the Americans that if they are not able to force the Russians to accept these demands, then Ukraine will change its defense politics and its defense plan, which means that Ukraine has already achieved something. If you ask my opinion, I believe that Zelensky and Ukrainians, the Ukrainian authorities, are planning to change the entire Ukrainian motto. You know that at the beginning of the special military operation, the main motto of Ukrainians was the borders of 1991. So they were saying that we will fight until the borders of 1991. But now it has become clear that it's impossible. The second motto from the Ukrainian side was to save its independence, to join NATO, to join the European Union, and to save its sovereignty. But now we see that this is not a motto right now, because most likely Ukrainians will not be able to achieve these tasks, will not be able to achieve these goals. So that is why I believe that Ukrainians are planning to use the next motto for 2026 and probably until the end of the special military operation. And this motto sounds like it's still too far to the river of Dnipro. So Ukrainians are going to change their defense plan and defense tactics. Ukrainians Ukrainians understand that Ukraine is too big for Russia. It's with the pace, or with the current pace of the special military operation, and we understand that most likely Russia requires probably months or maybe years even to get the river of Dnipro along the entire river, and we're not talking about the Odessa region and the western part of Ukraine. And this is the main idea that Zelensky is trying to develop, that despite the fact that Russians have probably some progress along the line of combat contact, it's still too far to establish complete control over Ukraine. So that is why we believe that at some point, and the thing that will probably that Ukraine will turn into at the end of the special military operation, this part of the state can easily join both NATO and the European Union, and most likely this is exactly what Zelensky is going to insist on. Anyway, let's wait and see what is going to be next, because despite the fact that Zelensky believes that it's still too far to the river of Dnipro, the Russians continue advancing exactly in this direction. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground, and first let's talk about the Zaporozhye direction. This is exactly the direction which is already very close to the city of Zaporozhye and to the river of Dnipro itself. During the previous 12 hours, as you can see, lots of changes were recorded, especially in the area of the city of Guliai-Polye. Let's take a look how the map was changing. So this is the situation by the end of the 29th of November of 2025, and this is the beginning of the 30th of November. As you can see, the Russians managed to improve their positions, and first of all, this information was confirmed this morning by several pro-Russian sources. This is the first thing, and the second thing is this video. This video was published also this morning by pro-Ukrainian sources of the 142nd Infantry Brigade, and here we can see how several soldiers of the armed forces of the Russian Federation were moving through the fields in the direction of R85 road. And then the Russians managed to discover drones above them, and then the Russians were trying to bring down drones that were attacking them. So these episodes of a duel between Russian soldiers and FPV drones of the armed forces of Ukraine took place exactly in this area. So once again, the Russians were moving from the east in the northern direction, so something like this, and at this point the Russians were fighting with Ukrainian drones. So based on this video, we came to the conclusion that the territory between a point where the battle took place and the territory of Rovnopol is under complete control of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. So once again, this is the situation by the end of the 29th, and this is the morning of the 30th of November of 2025. So as you can see, the Russians managed to shorten the distance to the Dnipro-Varvarovka line R85 road to a minimal distance, and furthermore, the Russians were advancing in the western direction as if they were moving towards their positions, that they as if they knew that the eastern line, or maybe even the next one, is already under complete control of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. So according to this video, we believe that the current positions of the armed forces of the Russian Federation is already go along this red line. So the Russians are very close to the villages of Varvarovka and Dobropolye, and furthermore, several pro-Russian sources stated that the clashes for Dobropolye are ongoing, and that the Russians are advancing, and that Ukrainians are about to lose control over the settlement. So the Russians, as we can see, are entering the final phase of the battle for the city of Guliai-Polye. As for the city itself, during the previous 12 hours, we haven't received anything that can confirm additional progress on the ground in this area, but we believe that there are very heavy clashes in this area. The sources reported that Ukrainians introduced additional forces and reserves in this direction with the purpose to stabilize the situation. Especially it concerns a significant number of drones that Ukrainians redeployed in this area. The Russians confirmed that this situation forced the Russians to slow down the pace of their offensive operation, but the Russians didn't stop. They continue attacking, maybe a bit slower, but they continue. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the northern Zaporozhye direction. During the previous 12 hours, we received a few videos from this area where we can see the consequences of Russian attacks. The Russians are bombing the line between Pokrovsk and Velikomikhailovka with aviation, with artillery, so which means that the Russians maybe are preparing this territory before the beginning of another major offensive operation in this direction as well. The Russians may try to cross the river of Volcha and to take under control these villages. At the same time, pro-Ukrainian sources published a very interesting information about the settlement of Ivanovka. Pro-Ukrainian sources published a video, and according to this video, we will not watch this video. According to this video, Ukrainians managed to recapture the settlement of Ivanovka and to capture up to 20 Russian soldiers. So, and pro-Ukrainian sources have already colored the territory of Ivanovka under complete Ukrainian control. We haven't seen even a single geolocation that can confirm this, just up to 20 prisoners of war that could be captured anywhere, maybe even in the Suji direction of 2024 or something like this. So that is why we are waiting for additional proofs. But if this information is correct, then obviously this is not very good situation for the Russians, because the village of Ivanovka currently is the only village on the Ukrainian side of the river of Volcha, and that this village was a very important village for the entire defense of the Russian Federation and for further plans of moving further deep inside of the Dnipro region. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the area of the city of Pokrovsk. During the previous 12 hours, as you can see, we have lots of very interesting updates and changes on the ground. Before we start, let's compare the map between the dates. So this is the situation by the end of the 29th of November, and this is the situation by the beginning of the 30th of November. During the previous 12 hours, according to several pro-Russian sources, the armored forces of the Russian Federation managed to improve their positions in the fields to the west of the city. So this is the map by the end of the 29th, and this is the 30th of November. So the situation here is very complicated, because a few days ago, several pro-Russian sources recolored this territory as a pro-Russian as a pro-Ukrainian territory. Now we have adjusted the map back, so this territory is covered with the fog of war. So we believe that there are very heavy clashes and nobody controls this territory for 100%. Furthermore, pro-Russian sources published this video, a very interesting video, and according to this video, and according to the author of this video, the Russians were testing new equipment to discovering of positions of FPV drone operators of Ukrainian forces. And here the Russians are saying that as a result of work of this equipment, the Russians managed to find positions of the armored forces of Ukraine, of their FPV drone operators, and to destroy them with a precise strike with aviation. So the Russians are saying that this is a revolutionary weapon in the special military operation, because this equipment allows to find positions of the FPV drone operators deep inside in the deep rear, and Russians are saying that if they are able to build and to produce lots of let's say types of this equipment, then Ukraine will lose any possibilities to hold FPV drone operators along the line of combat contact, and this can lead to complete collapse of their defense as well. In the southern part of the city of Mirnograd, additional changes on the ground, as you can see, were recorded. So this is the situation by the end of the 29th, and this is the 30th of November. Several pro-Russian sources stated that Russians managed to establish almost complete control over the southern citadel of the city of Mirnograd. If this information is correct, if the citadel is already behind the Russian backs, this means that the Russians now will face less resistance from the Ukrainian side, and they will be able to advance further in the northern direction until this territory where another citadel of the city of Mirnograd begins. This is the central citadel or something like this. The Ukrainians tried to control the southern parts. During the previous 24 hours, they published lots of videos of how Ukrainian reconnaissance drones were flying above the southern part of the city of Mirnograd, trying to discover positions of the armored forces of the Russian Federation. Also here we can see the consequences of clashes and the situation on the ground. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Volchansk direction. During the previous 12 hours, additional changes on the ground were recorded. This morning, a lot of sources discussed this video, and here we can see how Ukrainians of the 57th Motor Rifle Brigade were attacking a building with the Russian flag. So in this building, we can see a Russian flag that most likely was raised by the Russian soldiers, and here we can see how Ukrainians were trying to destroy a flag with FPV drone. So this video confirms that most likely this part of the city of Volchansk is already under complete Russian control. So for example, this is the situation by the end of the 29th of November, and as you can see, these territories used to be considered as a gray zone, but now we received something like a proof confirming that this territory most likely are under complete control of the armored forces of the Russian Federation. Now the Ukrainians are trying to destroy flags. Maybe the Russians are preparing a video with dozens of flags through the city of Volchansk, so that is why the Ukrainians are trying to ruin Russia's plans to publish this video and to probably announce complete control over the city itself. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching, subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.